Okay. Marianne Redding is a visual arts curator and writer. Currently, she is the senior curator of the Turchin Center for the Visual Arts at Appalachian State University. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. Um, in Boone, North Carolina, she holds a BA in English Literature from Ohio University, an MA in Arts Administration from the School of the Arts Institute of Chicago, an MLS from the University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, as well as an advanced certificate in the Museum Studies from Arizona State University. I keep doing. I'm like trying to let people in the room and I'm like messing up while I'm doing that. Most recently, Redding completed a master's in creative leadership from Minneapolis College of Art and Design, August 24th. And she has written and published numerous essays on photography and before taking her post as curator at the Turchin Center. Redding was the curator of the Marion Center for Photographic Arts and the chair of the photography department at Santa Fe University of Art and Design. Previously, she was the curator of photography for the Palace of the Governor's New Mexico History Museum. She has more than 40 years experience working as a curator, archivist, librarian, educator, and arts administrator. And she is a wonderful and fun person to hang out with as well. And so with that, I'm going to stop sharing. And Mary Ann, I'm going to turn the talk over to you for the moment.
Great. Thank you so much, David. I will mention that I am in the mountains of Western North Carolina, and we also have a huge thunderstorm going on right now. So if I just evaporate from the screen, that is why, because ever since the hurricane, it seems like every time we have a big thunderstorm, more trees go down on our property, which is up in the mountains. Um, and then we lose power and then everything shuts down. So hopefully this I'll get through tonight, but if I disappear, you know why. Um, as David said, I am currently the senior curator at the Turchin Center for the Visual Arts. Basically, that just means I'm old because I'm the senior curator. It also means I'm the only curator at the Turchin Center. And I took that position because it's very important to me that photography is not sequestered, which so often it is. And part of the reason that I took or I selected photography or photograph as an object for the theme for this particular jury show is that I'm really interested in pushing the boundaries of what photography is, what it can be, what the conversation is about it. I have a strong background in the history of photography. I worked at the New Mexico History Museum, which has over 1 million photographs going back to the earliest 1800, 1830s, 1840s of photography. So I'm fairly well versed in the history of photography and traditional mediums. And then I have worked as an educator, as a curator, and I'm really interested in how photography sort of fits into a larger art conversation. And so I thought photography as object is a really good way to push the boundaries of what we consider a photograph to be. What else can it be besides a two-dimensional object that's hanging on the wall? How can it engage a broader audience? And so I really had fun selecting the work for this installation. Um, David mentioned this piece earlier, but it was one of my favorites as well. Is the acrylic box of the 500 photographs that are in there, and yes, those are traditional photographs, but it's presented in a very non-traditional way. We all have boxes of photographs under our beds, in our closets that we've inherited from our parents and our grandparents. And, what do we do with all these things? And at the same time, that's in some ways, photographs are our memories. We remember instances, we remember people, we remember things that are no longer with us. So this idea of a photograph as memory, but also a photograph as an object, how do those two things relate to each other? How do you hold a photograph that is not in a frame in your hand? How do you display it? I'm very interested in those ideas of sort of, like I said earlier, pushing those boundaries. And having that conversation, how does photography fit into the larger conversation of the art world? And I'm particularly interested in how photography can really address a lot of contemporary issues, whether those are issues of gender, whether those are issues around climate change and climate literacy, and how we can use images and objects to move people from anxiety, because I think there's a lot of anxiety in the world today, no matter what part of the political platform you come down, I think there's anxiety. So how do we move people through art, through conversations? Where do we come together and move people from anxiety to activism to community? And I think that art and objects and poetry and film all do that. And so those are the ideas that I was really thinking about in choosing photography as an object or a photograph as an object. So I would like to, I can answer questions about that, and I can also turn it over to all of you to talk about your work, and we can just make this a free flowing conversation. Does anyone have
Yeah.
any questions right away?
Okay, we will revisit that at the end. We can like is and yeah, so let me start sharing my screen again. And thank you for that, Marianne. It's always great to get the juror's perspective. It's always each one is very unique. Okay. All right, so this is photo as object. And here are the artists who are exhibiting in this show. And thank you to everybody for sharing your work with us and allowing us to exhibit it. We've been getting fantastic feedback from people who have been coming through to either they're just wandering by the gallery and drop in, or people that are coming in specifically to see it. And it's been a really well received exhibition. So first up, we have Amy Rocket Todd, and unfortunately, she is unable to be here tonight. This is a very interesting work to see in person because each one of these diamonds is like a plexiglass piece that's individually hung. And when the pieces arrived, uh, she actually gave us multiple options of different ways that we could hang the piece, depending on how it was going to fit into our wall space, which was really kind of cool. And this is the configuration that we used in the gallery. And this work is Annabelle McGannon's work. Holding on to an inner piece is like keeping a candle lit on a windy day. These are pieces of wood that she has put the image on. And next up, and he is with us tonight, is Brian Galgano. So Brian, could you give us the name of this work and also tell us something about it?
Yeah, the name of the work is 7/29/2013. It's a date. And I just want to say thank you for having me, obviously. And I love this show, seeing it every day, or not every day, but when I'm there, it's really awesome to see everybody come in. And like David was saying, it is really cool and interesting. And it gives you a whole new perspective on what you can do with a photo, a photograph. Yeah, and this is an image from a project I'm doing that kind of asks the questions, can we really trust our memories? You know, are we a reliable witness to our past? And I've been thinking a lot about how memory shapes who we are and how it blurs and softens or even rewrites parts of our history and our story to help us move forward. And for me, that's deeply tied to my experience with addiction and recovery. And so to bring that sort of feeling into the imagery, I actually have like some handmade lens filters that I created to sort of give a distorted view of the world and reality. So the photos are like abstract and surreal, obviously, and they're not meant to be exact moments, although they are exact moments, but they're not meant to be exactly as seen. because, like I said, they move and change with time. And so it's really a conversation between who I was and who I am. And so I really appreciate being chosen, being able to show the work.
Brian, I really like this work because it also has a dreamlike quality. It's that sort of almost waking, almost asleep state where you don't know really what's real and what's a dream. And I thought that was a really strong part of your work.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. Especially this one represents not being really present in the moment in that state. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you can't necessarily tell from the photograph here, but there's two pieces of fabric that are each one's hanging off a dowel and one's in front of the other. So you're actually looking through one at the other, which in person like really helps with that whole dreamlike quality.
And just one last thing, my favorite part is when the AC turns on in the building, they move. And I really like that.
Okay, thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
And this is Caroline Perkins' piece, Dad and Me. And you can't necessarily tell, but this thing right here, this white dot, is actually drilled through the piece. So Caroline could not be with us this evening. And this is Carolyn Norton's piece, Jensen Beach in Winter. This is a fabulous piece. People really enjoy spending time walking around this piece, and it like sits on a pedestal in the room, so they're able to do a whole 360 around it and view it. And this piece is by Charlotte Wolfe. These are both called Untitled After the Flood, number 2, number 1 and number 2. Unfortunately, we have a lot of people traveling right now. I guess it is the season with school letting out. But these are those magnetic frames that you can buy that separate. And this is a Polaroid that's inside here that she worked with the emulsion of the Polaroid to create these. They're really beautiful. And Chip Chandifer is also traveling tonight, so he wasn't able to be here. But these are these wonderful pieces that he prints on vellum and uses gold leafing. And it's from a series that he's doing about the collected memories of his family and their home. And this one's called Pine Trees Have a Menacing Beauty. I promise we do have some people here that are going to be speaking about their works tonight. This piece is from Chris May. Oh, wait a second. We've got Brian, could you check the chat and see if there's anybody there? I see some messages coming in. See if there's anybody that we need to be adding in. This is Chris May's piece called Spike. And the spikes there are not actually physical pieces. They are actually images that are inside this resin thing that he's created.
David, is that resin or is it encaustic?
You know what? It may. I'll need to check the label. It may.
Okay.
I don't. It didn't strike me as encaustic when I was putting it up because I think I wouldn't have put it in the front window if it had been.
I've heard Chris talk about it. It's resin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was working for a gallery, we had a horrible incident where some encaustic pieces we sold that people put in like a high sun area of their home and they just melted. This piece is by Corinne Adams called Match Story. And this is a fun piece to play with. this piece is by Dale Niles called Animal Lives Redux Puzzle. And so this whole thing is like basically handmade by Dale. And in the top of it, she has cards, which are different images. We didn't open it up, we left it sealed for the exhibition, but there's these 6 squares that are in the other section that correspond to the 6 cards in the top. And you can turn the cubes to make each one of the pictures. And it's funny because every time I come in the gallery, the picture has changed because somebody has reworked it. So that's been fun. This piece is Deborah Barnhart, who is here
That's
tonight.
me.
So, Deborah,
Yes,
you
yeah.
are up.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Marianne, so much for including me in this exhibition. This piece is called Each Has to Enter the Nest, and the rest of the line is from a poem by the 13th century poet Rumi. Each has to enter the nest made by the other imperfect bird. And one day somebody brought me up. This is a really tiny nest. It doesn't look that way here, but I photographed it a number of ways. And in this instance, I photographed it and backed it on wood and did some stamping on it and wrote the line of the poem on top of the photograph. A nest is very symbolic, I think, of many things, including safety, home, birth. There's the idea of the circle. Most nests are circular. The reason that I chose this title and this line is because it's about relationships. And you know, if you think about a nest, yes, it could be about romantic relationship, but really it's about relationships with everyone. And I believe it's about having compassion and understanding for other people.
I like the fact that you put it on wood also, because I mean, the nest is twigs and things that are collected from the environment, and they both have this built-in fragility to them, and it will not last forever, as relationships will not last forever. So I thought it was a really nice marriage of the materials and the ideas.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Deborah. And next up, we have Emily Baker. And
Hello, I am here.
hey, how are you doing?
Hi, good. I'm based in Atlanta, and I'm a sculptor, so I was really excited to see this call. And thank you, Marianne, for including me. And so I've been working for the last long time trying to figure out how to integrate imagery within sculpture and not have it feel scrapbooky. And I happen to have the biggest archive that exists of this steel mill in upstate New York, because I went in and I took it out before the government leveled the site, which was a super fun site. So on one side, now this view, we only see one side of the images, where these are micro photographs of stainless steel. So metal magnified up to 500 times. And then the other side is images actually from the site, and where there's one person in one side, and then the rest are images of the making of the steel that they were doing. So this is a piece in a series merging archival imagery with also photos that I took of the site before it was demolished. And so I'm trying to capture like the essence of a world that maybe no longer exists, but also kind of be a witness, the last witness to it in a way.
Is the significance that it was a Superfund site part of the piece?
Well, so the shapes that are cut out were plasma cut, and those are shapes that are similar to like a crank of a tool, of a mill. So a lot of my work, I'm trying to find moments where the human is still involved and where touch happens, because a lot of methods now are automated. And so in a way, I think that's important because I'm trying to critique an industry while also honoring it, of the way that practices were harming environments. But also I'm a metal worker and it's something I really love and I love to share. And I teach at Georgia State and run the sculpture program. So I have mixed feelings about all the things. So a little bit.
Are you in tri-state sculpture? Is Georgia in it?
I do know, no,
Okay.
Georgia's not. I'm in Mid-South sculpture, but
Okay.
I did recently discover tri-state. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting organization. I like the tension that your piece has, that between what we're doing to the world and sort of the detritus that will be here
Mhm.
after we're gone. And certainly
Yeah.
Superfund sites are one of the biggest environmental problems, not the biggest, but a huge, huge environmental problem historically and going forward. So I really like the tension that your work brings to those sites, and to really thinking about how they wouldn't exist if we hadn't created them, and
Right.
the idea of what is our responsibility
Yeah.
to each other, to the planet, as we create an industrial society and continue that.
Totally.
And look at AI as part of that going
Mhm.
forward.
Well, I
So
think like we have retirement plans if we're lucky. Why can't businesses have an end plan that they contribute to? I know that's a naive thought that no one would go for, but I'm like, we do it. Just a little pocket of money to clean something up would be nice.
sure would.
Yeah. So I'm kind of trying to make things that exist in like a post automation boom relic.
Great, really strong work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is one of two pieces that we have in the front window. And it's really interesting to watch people come by and they'll see it and they'll be like, you'll see them be like, what is that? That's really cool. And they'll stop and then they'll look at the poster and then they'll come in to like check out what's going on. So it's definitely been helping to generate foot traffic. And people like, it's always fun when that moment of recognition when they're looking on both sides of your cogs there and they like see something recognizable because there's some figurative stuff in there and they're like, oh, it's a photograph.
I'm trying to distill image or like erase some imagery to try to see what's remaining, similar to the way that the site was. So mirroring that process, I guess, by removing information.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, well, thank you. And next up were two pieces by Emily Greenslade called Familiar Dinners. This is number 2 and 3. And unfortunately, she was not able to be here tonight. But next up is Gene Dominic, who is here tonight with his piece, Georgia Girl, Why Should I Wake Up?
Hi, good evening, everybody. And Marianne, thank you for your work on this. We all really appreciate that. Let's see, where should I start with this? So I'm very interested in working outside of the traditional frame context. We use frames almost without thinking about them. They're either going to be white or they're going to be black. And typically we use frames to protect the underlying photograph. But the frame to me is an afterthought, and it's just doesn't bring much to the party, if you will, other than, the protective quality. So I was thinking about different ways to work with imagery outside of the frame, and I've done stuff with fabrics and collage and weaving two pictures together, two different pictures into one. And I tend to have a lot of stuff around my studio, so I had a ton of these 4x5 film holders. Um, and I don't tend to throw a lot of stuff away because you never know what crazy idea will come up. And I was in the studio of a friend who was a woodworker one day and watching her make some things, and I don't know where and by the end of the day with her, I had this notion of having her make these little pedestals and using the 4x5 film holders as frames. And so this is the result. There's a photograph on the other side as well. And it's tactile, it's meant to be picked up, it's meant to be played with. You can actually slide the dark slide into both sides to cover it up if you want, and you can pull them out or put one in, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, this is the end result of that little bit of skylarking with my friend who's a woodworker.
This is really great because it really subtly references how photographs frame the world. And I love the fact that you're using the film holder as the framing device, and the fact that you can actually, which I didn't know this when I selected this, but I really love this, that you can drop in the black slide and cover these up, and then it becomes, you don't know what you're looking at. And I just really like that tension that this piece creates.
Yeah, thank you. It's fun to do. It's these kind of experiments are always fun to work with, and this piece will be one of one. Although I have a lot of these 4x5 film holders, I'm only going to use the photographs for one of these, so people can look at my archives and pick photographs that they want in this context. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where this goes.
Yeah, great project.
Yeah, thank you.
It'd be nice to see a whole line of them with something different on both sides.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah, nice.
Thanks, Gene.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
All right. And next up, we're going to have Gyla Johnson with her work, Gullah Girl.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, so I'm going to show you my video because that's the image that I turned in, but it's not the image that I
You muted yourself, Gyla.
sorry about that. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Awesome. So I am going to show you what the image looks like that's actually on the wall, which should be my video that you should see now. Yeah, that's it. So,
Yeah.
and I just took a picture of what's on the wall at the gallery. Marianne, thank you for accepting me into this exhibit. It was an honor. Thank you for trusting me to give you what I described in my artist statement. I appreciate that as well. This photo is a photo of my granny, who was Gullah, and the Gullah people were the descendants of enslaved West Africans off the coast of Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina. Excuse me. You might have also heard people refer to them as Geechee, but those are two different people. My granny was from South Carolina. She was a sharecropper for over 50 years. The picture that you see of her is on her 103rd birthday, and she died 2 months later after that picture. The Gullah people have their own language. They do their own quilting, style of quilting, which is is considered more like a chaotic, more free-willing quilting, not this typical European style, which is very exact, very usually muted colors. My granny's style shape, she used the diamond. That was her thing. So my task that I chose for myself was to try to honor her, which I think I did, and I printed her photo of my granny on a piece of fabric. And then I extended the quilt that that picture was on by using my own version of the diamonds and how I learned how to quilt. So what you see is my granny's, what you see is that my granny is in the middle, and above it is her language, Gullah language. It's I'm gonna be kind. And I have the blue colors that are diamonds are hand painted. And that's an homage to my granny because she used to work with indigo and her family used to work with indigo in South Carolina. And if you're from the South, you might have heard of haint blue. And so I have hand dyed the blues in the form of haint blue as again, homage to my granny to keep the haints away. And I also extended the quilt in a hexagonal patterns so that it looked more 3D. And it's up on clothespins because my granny also used to be a washer lady, and that's how she put my dad through college. So I wanted to make sure that I put all of her Gullah-ness out in the open because she couldn't be Gullah at home and she couldn't be Gullah in public because it was considered bad English and they were considered uneducated people. But my granny was an artist, and for the time that she was in, she did the best she could. And she was able to put my dad through college, and I was able to go finish and get my PhD. So she did something right. So this is my tribute to my granny. This photo is also up at the airport right now. So she will be known in the world's busiest airport and at the gallery as a Gullah girl for the rest of her life. Well, for the rest of time. So that is my granny, and that is my my explanation of my artwork.
Oh, thank you for sharing your family story. It's a really beautiful and a really beautiful piece. And I love the tradition of quilting that runs all through the South. It's just a really beautiful piece that you've created. I like the family Bible there as well.
And that Bible is in Gullah as well. It's in English and in Gullah.
That's really wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Gala, if you want to email the photograph that you took of the piece to me, I can. I'm not sure if how well people can see the one you were sharing because of the PowerPoint I'm sharing. But if you'll email that to me, I will. When we get to the end here, I'll go back and bring up the piece that as you submit as it's actually hanging in the gallery, so people can see what it looks like.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, David.
Okay. And we are moving on here to this piece is I should have printed this larger. Harper Nichols, Shadowed Screen. She is not here with us this evening. This is a really beautiful piece. This is also in our front window because it has this incredible transparency to it that you don't necessarily get from this photograph here. But the material is like this kind of, it has this kind of rippled quality to it. And the image has been like face mounted into it, and you can also see through it. So when the sunlight's coming through it, it has this beautiful seafoam green color and stuff. It's really lovely. And this piece here is from John Lung. It's a garden triptych, cyanotype in a window frame. And if any of y'all saw the Arts ATL, one of the big arts papers here in Atlanta, ran an article about a couple of weeks ago called 9 Exhibitions You Must See. And we were the lead on that for photo as object. And this was the image that they shared with that story. So it was really nice to be considered one of 9 exhibitions that people needed to check out. And next up here, we have, I can't even read this.
Well, that's mine. Katie Shapiro.
Thank you, Katie. I was like, I need readers on. So this is Katie Shapiro's piece. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you. It's really great to be able to see the show in this format. And thank you, Mary Ann. This is like just such a show after my own, heart. And so it's really cool to see all this work. Um, and I also, so this work was created 2018 when I did a residency at Bullseye Glass, which is they have a few different locations, and it was in Los Angeles. I had like a 9-month-old at the time, and previously, while he was in my belly, I had taken all these photographs in Moab, Utah, um, which is sort of like this series or what I've been sort of continually doing, which is going to these sort of places that have energetic, strong energy and kind of photographing there and then using that, material to do who knows what with. So I had all that material, but then I had a baby, and then I got this amazing sort of residency that was very guided, because I never worked with glass, and so it's really, really amazing. So I really like that word that you use. I think your name is Jean, skylarking. I never really knew that word, but I would say I was kind of doing that here. I was given materials and people to help me, and basically I was sort of exploring and experimenting with this medium of glass and using it was really very cool powdered glass to create, basically using I would create an image, or I would use one of my images and then create a silk screen and then basically kind of use powdered glass. And then the images would go, or the glass pieces with the powdered glass would get baked in a kiln. So it's called kiln form glass. So yeah, this one, I called it shells because of those pieces on top of it. But yeah, it was kind of born out of, there's a whole series that I did of this work there, and I had a show. It was called Moab, since that was kind of where the work was originated. But yeah, I think that I just really like that sky larking word, because I think my work, there's a lot of that in my own process, which is like, I think where it gets so fun to like play around with these different ways of presenting work, or yeah, thinking of photographs as objects in different ways. So
What a great residency to have. I mean, that's such a great opportunity when residencies can provide artists with the opportunity to experiment with new media and combine media. I mean, bravo for you for taking that on. Really, really strong work. And I love that marriage of sort of the abstraction of these images and the glass and the I really appreciate you describing how you use the powdered glass in making this, because I wasn't sure just from looking at the images. But I think what a fabulous residency you had. And hopefully
yeah,
you continue more. I mean, the Corning Glass
yes,
Factory, they offer residencies.
it's so funny. I actually literally just found out about that today. That I swear to
Wow.
God, because I'm at this workshop and I met another person who works. Anyways, it's very synergy.
Oh,
Um,
good.
But yeah, I just will add that I also think the sort of glass, like making the images, there's actually like a texture, there's actually a physicality to it, which to me is very analogous to analog photography. So there is this, I don't know, there's a very like analog process that I really liked, that was like same but different kind of.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And the next piece up here is from Linda Barsotti. And in the gallery, this piece is actually, there's like this piece of plexiglass. It's kind of octagon shaped, and it has three dowels on it. And so this piece rests on those three dowels. And it's probably maybe about, I don't know, 2.5 feet wide, and same in height. It's a really cool piece. And then next up, we have Linda Plaisted with her work.
I am here.
Let's see. Yes, can you tell us the name of the piece?
It's called the Mama Mary altarpiece.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous.
Thank you. If you don't mind, I'm going to just kind of read a little from the statement about this piece because it has a lot of layers, physical layers and metaphorical layers. So maybe it will help explain a little bit. The altarpiece series layers my original photography with found vernacular photos, maps, and book pages roughly torn and collaged onto birch panel and finished with cold wax medium and encaustic. And if you kind of see some of the textures on there, I've actually left the impression of an actual hot iron in the wax to kind of reference domestic servitude. The pieces are then finished, mended with gold leaf to honor ancestral lives shattered by slavery and painstakingly rebuilt. Since unearthing the unholy legacy of slavery while researching the roots of my family tree, I created this series to process this truth, utilizing many overlapping cultural practices that strive for ancestral healing. Each piece is deliberately torn and imperfectly mended with gold leaf in the method of Japanese kintsugi, the practice of repairing broken pottery or ceramics with gold to emphasize the history and imperfections of the object rather than concealing them. I layered on golden joss paper, commonly used as burnt offerings in Chinese ancestral worship, to ensure that the spirits of the dead have sufficient means in the afterlife. The elements surrounding and bleeding through the central figure evoke the iconography of an ancient Byzantine altarpiece. These icons, in an unlettered, ignorant society, gave visual form to complex theological concepts, such as the sacrifice of the saint, here embodied as an African-American woman, and how she suffered and continues to be sacrificed for our sins. While the truths of our history continue to be suppressed, I choose in this work to lift every voice and sing. This piece, in a related note, I just finished creating 5 more pieces. I put myself into kind of an at-home residency last month, and I worked really, really hard to create more pieces from this same series. There's a couple behind me. But 3 of these mixed media collages from this same altarpiece series will be seen later this month at the New Orleans Photo Alliance exhibition, where photography meets collage as part of Collage Magazine's Collage Fest 2025. So thank you for having me, Marianne and APG. I appreciate it.
Well, congratulations on your upcoming show as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe collage might be a good theme in one of our shows next year.
Yes, do it.
Yeah, and by the way, members, check the newsletter. There's a link to a members survey that we sent out. It's just 4 questions. One of the questions are, if an artist instructor could come to Atlanta to teach, who you would like that to be? Give us 3 suggestions, or just 1 if you only know 1. What would you love to take a class about? And what are some exhibition themes that you would like to see next year? We're currently receiving those because we'd like your input. We want to freshen up our schedule for next year. All right, now we're moving on to Lynn Buchanan.
Thank you.
Who is up?
Yep, I'm here. Thank you very much, David and Marianne, for having me. I really appreciate it. I live in Fletcher, just outside of Asheville along Cane Creek. And we were really hammered by Hurricane Helene and lost over 100 people here. And our bridge was washed out, and I broke my wrist and couldn't get it fixed for 5 days. And it took 5 months to get up on this mountain right behind my house that I used to walk every day. And so there was just like a lot of devastation. I think we all really had a lot of PTSD. So the image, I made this image, and it's called Hope Springs Eternal, Water Continues to Flow Beyond the Fallen Trees. And the central image is a gold leaf image on MDF board. and it shows a fallen tree, and there's a little trickle of water. That was all that was left of the waterfall that did $12,000 worth of damage to the trees in our backyard. And that image is put on top of an image of all the fallen leaves and things on the ground. And around the side of the box, I had 4 quotes, and I can read them. The first is, peace is not the absence of chaos or conflict, but rather finding yourself in the midst of that chaos and remaining calm in your heart. And that was by John Rocks. And the second was, nothing is softer or more flexible than water, yet nothing can resist it, by Lao Tzu. And another was, the beauty of a fragment is that it still supports the hope of brilliant completeness, by Tobias Wolff. And the last quote was, the fragments I have shore against my ruins, by T.S. Eliot. So I tried to narrow in on one small segment of all the destruction and find calm within the chaos. And by putting the image in a smaller contained space, I thought I was able to focus on the beauty of a fragment instead of being overwhelmed by all the destruction that was all in my neighborhood and my community. And I gold leaf the center to evoke the preciousness of life as it nears the end, and to honor the transience of nature of earthly life. And that small trickle of water, as I mentioned, was all that remained of this teeming water that just downed all of the trees. When I had to get to the hospital, they had to cut down 30 trees with chainsaws in my neighborhood before I could get out. So it's really shocking that something that small could do that. But the image to me followed some Japanese wabi-sabi philosophy, that beauty can be found in imperfection, and that complexity is in the natural order, and that death is always a part, acknowledging that life ends in death. And so I guess I was trying to find a way to heal myself, and to find a way to have hope, and to find peace in the middle of chaos. But also, I love the concept that fragments can give us a jumping off point, that things will grow out of these fragments, and that there can be, wholeness can become again. And so I made it to be a rather small box, so that you would look into the box and just realize that one small fragment can mirror a lot of the universal rhythms.
That's really beautiful, Lynn. I love that. I also really like the fact that you've contained worlds in this box. I mean, if you think about the natural environment and all the destruction from Asheville to Boone and all the way up and down the coast that we've had from Hurricane Helene, it's just at the same time, this is the most green spring we've seen in 10 years, and all the down trees become habitat for the animals that were displaced, and that this is the cycle of life and death, and you manage to really capture that in this small piece, and honor that cycle that we are all part of, and that we forget that we're part of, and we forget that we have this vulnerability. And then something happens like the hurricane, and it upends everything. And at the same time, life continues. So it's a really beautiful piece. Thank you.
So much. Yeah, I'm working with Conserving Carolina now to photograph a lot of the properties that they've bought that people can't go on and that are coming back. And I just had 10 images in a show in Kurosawa, Japan, on life continuing in the precariousness of our current situation. So at least it gives me hope. I think that's what I do it for every day, and hopefully it gives other people hope. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next up is, come on. There it is. Okay. This piece is by Marcos Oscar Lopez, called Runner. And then next up, we have Marky Kaufman, who is with us tonight. Marky, are you there? Okay, I'm not seeing her in the user list. So I
No,
tell you what, we'll,
I'm
oh,
here.
are you there?
Yep, sorry.
Uh,
I was having
okay.
unmuting myself. Yeah, thank you, Marianne, for picking this piece. It's a chemogram, starts off as a chemogram dress. I've been making chemogram dresses for several years now. I started making the chemogram dresses as a kind of response to the 2016 presidential election, where I found the misogyny to be more than I could take every day. So I would turn off the TV or turn off the radio and go into the darkroom and make a chemogram dress. And the dress became a kind of, I decided I was taking back the dress in the same way that women during the Women's March of 2017 took back the color pink by wearing pussy hats. So the dress can be seen as a symbol of female objectification, but I wanted to take it back and make it this powerful symbol of the female. And also recently I've been making pictures about the cosmos. So this picture is sort of a combination of two different ways that I've been making chemograms. One with silver paper and fixer and bleeding tissue paper, and one with silver paper and potassium ferrocyanide and bleeding tissue paper. These are also edited a little bit on Photoshop, but mostly there's a lot of hand in these.
Wonderful, thank you. It becomes this very Jungian symbol, which I really like.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's hopeful too, that we're going to get through all of this.
The gesture is a gesture of celebration and embrace, which I like. That is hopeful.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Marky.
Thank you.
And next up, we have Mitchell Squires with National Folio, and Mitchell is with us tonight.
Thank you so much for including me in the exhibition, Mary. I thought the call just ignited me in a way, because I've been a sculptor for quite some time, an architect, and so when I read photo as object, I thought, what better way to engage that theme than to objectify the photograph, right? Which to me was a slightly different, not quite the same as transforming a photograph into an object. So I chose to display this random mass of photographs from, the early to through the mid 20th century that I'd collected over time, because I'd begun to see them as artifactual emblems of the hopes and dreams of those that are represented in them. So I put them in a transparent acrylic box with an open top, not only so viewers could get a sense of the mass's geology, its thickness, if you will, but to also suggest the open-ended nature of the compilation, that it could easily be added to, subtracted from, moved around, etc. So the whole piece was designed to get me closer in understanding to Lauren Berlant's theory of cruel optimism, which I think I wrote in the submission, which she describes as an atmospheric phenomenon, or at least contained within an atmospheric phenomenon comprised of relations between things. She would refer to that as a sensory apparatus. And so while optimism is not bad and is indeed necessary to exist in the world, optimism becomes cruel when the very things we desire to achieve or aspire to in our efforts to obtain a good life actually make themselves impossible to attain, or at least make impossible the personal transformations for which we strive. So these frayed fantasies of the good life become an overwhelming landfill or impasse that is seemingly suspended within that sensory apparatus. So for me, this particular object is a physical representation of that impasse through the medium of photography. So for me, the work uses objects from the past to question our so-called future, and whether we and our institutions are astute enough to provide broader examples of the good life that we might find relevant, restorative, and resourceful in our efforts to survive and coordinate the daily crises we're made to endure. There's, you know, when I read the call, it didn't take long for me to look over to this bench in my office here to see a basket of these random photographs that I collected over time. And so a lot of my work in the past has my sculptural works have dealt with collections and objects and material culture and the like. And so I really appreciated an opportunity to sort of stitch together photography and sculpture. And so this was an opportunity to do that. So I'm really appreciative of that opportunity.
I think you did it really, really well. And you also reinforced the idea that actually all photographs are objects. I mean, it's a play on the whole idea. I mean, a photograph is still, it's two-dimensional, but it's an object. It can be anything. And so I love the fact that you understood that and played with that idea and took these objects and made an object, and also let people go through them in a public way, because these memories are everyone's memories, and they become every person in some ways. And you speak of the good life, and yet, like, we can't take any of it with us.
No.
It is really beautiful. I mean, there's so many layers in this piece.
Mm-hmm. And the collection is growing.
Next time it'll be 1,000 photographs.
Who knows? The next time the acrylic box may be twice as thick. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was really interesting to get to hear this other perspective on the piece and from where you were working from, Mitchell, because that's really interesting. And it's something I would definitely want to spend some time with thinking about. Just go back to your artist statement. But it's interesting, you know, when we put artworks out in the world, they have, like, you know, we can't control how they're received and how people interact with them. And this piece has been kind of this wonderful community piece. I mean, when it arrived, you know, just installing it, Mitchell had put a note inside saying, hey, if this settles too much during shipping, feel free to kind of zhuzh it and bluff it back up. And if it still doesn't seem full enough, here's an additional 300 photographs you can toss in. So immediately I opened the other 300 photographs and added them in and kind of fluffed it up. And, you know, no matter who comes up, no matter what their background is, they start going through these pictures, and, you know, there's this familiarity about the photographs that resonates with everybody. And there's this interesting connection between then and now that seems to happen, where the past is brought forward. And like with opening night, and when there's times when there's multiple people in there, you see conversations start happening between complete strangers as they're talking about their shared experiences that these photographs are eliciting in them. And it's really been a lot of fun to experience the piece in that way, and that human aspect of it. And so thank you very much for submitting.
Thank you. I really appreciate hearing that.
There's also this really wonderful nostalgia about the piece too, because so many images are born digital now, and we print them out, but they have a very different feel. These are photographs of a time and a place, and photography is not that anymore, largely. So this becomes a time capsule as well, which I really love that about it.
Yes, I agree. Most of my photography today is digital, you know, and it's actually mostly, and I think David would sort of understand this, is self-portrait photography for the most part. And so to think about these and to imagine when I sort of leaf through them, what were the hopes and dreams of these people, and whether or not they, acquired that good life. Because I think in many ways, to take a photograph in the way that I believe most of these were taken, was to somehow capture the sense that sense of hope that you had, in a future. I only have to believe that we still take photographs for that reason. But it is increasingly challenging to think about the future in a hopeful way. But I think we can get there.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This piece is by Murdy Cope called Retro Lily Pads. And I think you can tell from the photograph here that she has embroidered and stitched onto the photograph. Wonderful piece. And then we have a diptych next by Nikki Burke called Bubbles and Bones.
Hi. Wow, there is just so much amazing work. It's just absolutely beautiful. I feel so sad that I could not see it in person. I live in Oregon, so yeah, but wow, just very, very cool. The diversity is just amazing. This is a collage piece. It's a diptych, and it's actually about myself and about a moment in time. My work is usually not, about me, but it's my daughter in the photograph, and it's really about my mom and her. That's her hand on the bottom there, and her fingers are really deformed with arthritis, and my hands are going the exact same way. And that's my daughter's hand kind of like holding over. And they had this little bubble machine thing, and my daughter couldn't operate it. She couldn't work it. And so she was giving it to my mom to try to work it, and my mom could work it, but it was really hard for her. And so my daughter was like, am I going to be that way one day? And she was asking about that. And she's been asking about that now as she's getting older. She's looking at my hands getting like that. So I just wanted to kind of create that moment where, they were playing with this toy, and it was a really kind of sweet, it was really innocent. She was so young, at that time. She's a little older now. But it had a sharpness to it too, like I loved the innocence of the bubbles, but the sharpness of the moment, of her fear, kind of, is that coming for me at some point in time? So I've been looking at a lot of collages just because I'm one of those people that have tons of photographs. For a long time, I had just unlimited access to a dark room and a color dark room. So I just made all kinds of pictures, and I kept all my test prints. And so, I've been going back to them and using a lot of them, and actually reusing some old negatives, because there's a dark room in Portland that I rent. And so when I was making these pictures from the old negatives of my daughter, I solarized her face, just to kind of give it a little bit of the same effect as the bubble. That's what I was going for there. So yeah, I mean, that's I wanted it to be kind of dramatic lighting, just to reference the fear, but also I don't know if you guys have seen the work of Mary Delaney. She did collages like in the late 1700s. Like, while I've been looking at just different collage work, just to get inspiration, I came across her work. And it's all botanicals, but they're all on this black background, and the flowers are just so amazing. They're so detailed that at the time they used them in botany books. And the really cool thing about it is that she didn't start making her collages until she was in her 70s. And so I kind of was thinking about that. And my mom is, you know, so much older and she sews. So she's always trying to do little things with her hands that don't cooperate, you know. So all of that, those ideas went into the, the creation of this piece. So, yeah.
Great, thank you so much. I like the diptych aspect of it too, and I like the combination of the black and white and the color and that tension that is created. The color really pops, and you just chose, you know, two very dominant colors that with the black and white. I think that's a nice touch.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nikki.
Thank you.
Right, and next up here we have Reed Bird Whistles, Water, Water Everywhere. His cyanotype work and fabric frame that he created. This piece is like 40 inches square, it's big. And then we have Ryan Rudolph's piece, Magnolia Gnarl Pierced. So we have on the left is like a detail of the piece that you see in of what the actual framed work looks like. And Shunyo has her piece, Have You Eaten Yet? And Shunyo, were you able to, is she on the call? She didn't know if she's going to be able to make it or not. She was afraid she was going to be in an area that didn't have stable Wi-Fi, and I don't see her in the list. But unfortunately, we weren't able to actually do the installation. We didn't have the space in the gallery to do the installation, which would have really been wonderful. So she took a photograph of the installation and sent it to us as a framed piece. But kind of in a nutshell, what this piece is she was here in America. Her mother's overseas, is worried about whether she's eating well or not, and would be sending her text messages saying, you know, have you eaten? And so Shinyun started photographing her meals and texting them to her mom so she could see that she was taking care of herself. And after she'd been doing this for a couple of weeks, her mom started taking pictures of her meals and texting them back to her. And so that backdrop you're looking at is like made up of 400, I think it was 400 images of food that they photographed and sent back and forth to each other. And so she also made this tablecloth out of those images. And so the two computers sitting there with the two place, or they're used as place settings, represent she and her mother on opposite parts of the world, talking to each other through electronic means and sharing their dinners with each other. I would love to see this as an actual installation and in person. And last but not least is Sloane Frederick with her piece Taylor's House. And as you can see, this work, kind of like Gyla's, is also done as a quilted work that hangs on the wall off of a dowel. And I believe she wasn't able to be here tonight. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And if you'll just bear with me for one moment. Stop sharing. Okay. I'm going to bring up Gyla's image that she emailed, and then I'm going to share that. So just hold tight here. Great. So earlier when she was describing her work, she mentioned that the photograph that was submitted was different from the actual finished piece. So this is actually what's hanging on the wall in the gallery. So it's. And Gala, do you have anything additional to say while we've got the image up this way people can see it, or?
No, I hope you enjoy it, but no, I've already said what I need to say about it. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun piece. And before we, open it up to to the Q&A portion of tonight, I just want to say, that, everybody that's in the show and APG members in particular should just really, really be proud of the organization and the quality of the work that is on exhibit at the APG galleries. I've been looking at exhibitions at APG since about 2017, I think, and it's been interesting each year to see as people are developing and the quality of the work continuing to come in, and people photographing with intention, and the work that comes in is just really, really excellent. And I think you're all to be congratulated on what you're doing, and it just makes me really, really proud to come in each day and to see the gallery and to see the work hanging in there, and to just feel so good to be surrounded by so many talented people and to have so many people contributing work to the organization and sharing your work with us. So thank you so much. And with that, if anybody has any questions, just unmute yourself and you can ask questions of the other artists. You can ask questions of Marianne. If you don't want to speak in the group, you can always put your question into chat, and then I'd be happy to ask it on your behalf. So the floor is yours. It's a quiet group.
Do you think you'll be doing this kind of show again, like an annual photo as object show? It's such a great idea.
Yeah, we do a thing each year. It's called, internally we refer to it as concepts, because each year the concept changes. And so we all have Marianne to thank for this concept, because she came into town and we all went out to lunch together, and we were like, hey, would you want to juror a show for us? And what would the theme be? And she was like, let's do photo as object. And so this, she came up with this idea. But I think where it may not be next year's concept, I think having an opportunity to do a mixed media show is something that we should add into our mix. And I think it brings in a whole nother group of photographer artists that perhaps we haven't been exhibiting, because we do tend to be so much more traditional in what we've been showing. So I think it should be, part of the picture going forward.
I have a question as like a newbie. I don't really identify as a photographer, but I'm using images within my work as a sculptor. And this is maybe for anybody, but also for Marianne. What advice do you have to somebody who's using archival imagery and excerpts of found images, maybe alongside images that I've taken, which were never taken for the point of being capital P photos?
I think a lot of artists are doing that. And I think that's one of the things that's so exciting about photography, is that it is very malleable in lots of ways. We can think of it as very traditional, and we can also think about it. I mean, we're inundated with photographs, and the way we think about them is changing all the time. And I think artists of all backgrounds have used photography. I mean, ceramicists use images on their clay. I mean, it's always been part of the conversation, but I think we tend to not think about it that way. And I think that's one of the reasons that I wanted to do this exhibition, is that I think it's important that photographs are seen as another tool and another aesthetic. You can do so many things with photography. And it's one of the richest media, I think, that is available for all artists. And I think how you choose to use the medium of photography is wide open. And so I think, the way that you're thinking about it, I think photographers tend to define themselves as photographers, but photographers are artists, and photography is another tool. Just like painting is, just like clay is, just like, whatever medium is that you're using. You can use poetry, you can do sound performance, you can write with language. The richness of photography, the richness of all the arts is something that I think is really, really important. And so I think sort of exploring that and what you're doing with your work is really, really important. That's
Yeah.
sort of a rambling answer to
Yeah,
your,
that was
but
helpful. I
think
think
it all ties together.
I've been trying to view it more as a texture
Mhm.
than as an image, to try to release slight imposter syndrome. But yeah, that was helpful. Thank you.
I don't think you should feel that you're an imposter syndrome at all, because I think that photography is like all the arts. It has this depth that we don't always explore all the opportunities that are there, and you are. So think of yourself as an artist who's using sculpture, who's using photography, who's creating this critique and commentary on the world that we've created. And I think Mitchell's doing the exact same thing.
Cool. Thank you.
And I also think Lynn Buchanan is doing that too. I mean, she's creating these beautiful photographs, and then they're photographs of the destruction, they're photographs of the trees, and yet she's surrounded by the wooden box that was the tree. I mean, again, there's so many layers there that are being teased out by artists who are using different materials. It's a really important exploration of materiality, of objectivity, and of ideas, and using whatever form you want to as an artist to express those ideas.
I really loved this call. It, really challenged me. That's the first object I've ever made or thought about making. And I thought, and I showed it in another show at the Cowie Arts and Heritage thing before this show. And they also were trying to call for using a fragment of something he found and making it into something more. So it took it beyond the way I usually look at things. And I really want to continue exploring that, and really want to thank you for that call. It really challenged me and opened new doors.
It was one of the nice things about this call is that we had photographers in talking with people who maybe normally work outside of the photography range. So we had different people from different mediums in dialogue with each other. I think it's, earlier, Gene had mentioned, that he got an idea, from visiting with an artist friend of his and working in his studio. And I think spending time with artists who photography is not their main focus can be really, really inspiring. And it's amazing how many people incorporate photography into some aspect of what it is that they're doing, even though you may not realize it in the final product. I mean, I think about, like, I was watching a video the other day on Amy Sherrill and her painting process. And she starts off with a photograph that she stages, and then she takes that photograph and she paints it. So and there's just all sorts of ways things can be used.
How do you spell her last name?
Sherald is a Sherald.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna check her out. Great. Thank you.
I just wanted to add one thing, if I could.
Certainly.
I wanted to say to the whole group with everyone's work that I really enjoyed looking at the work at the opening and spent a good bit of time there. And I really liked the work. I liked the different ideas that came together in the show, and so many different ways of of using photography to bring your ideas to life. And it was just very encouraging to see that show. Thank you all.
I think the images you shared from the opening were really fantastic, and it seemed like the people there were really engaging with the work. But I did have a question, a simple question for Mary Ann. I'm sort of interested in knowing what you're working on now in terms of curating.
The show that we're putting up right now is actually a show from Thailand. Because we're in the mountains, rural Western North Carolina. Every 2 years pre-COVID, we did an international show. This is the first time the university opened the doors to international travel. So, well, last year. So we're doing an exhibition of Thai artists. Not everyone who is in the exhibition is Thai, but they live and work in Thailand most of the year. So they're artists from South Korea and from Italy and from Canada and from the United States, but most of them have a long-term commitment to Thailand. And most of the artists there are looking at climate change. Thailand is really affected. It has so much coastline. When I was there in Thailand, which was not long after the hurricane here, I was on the coast on Chonburi, and the city flooded every day. And so it's very interesting to me that so many artists around the world are looking at issues of climate change. So there are textiles, there are photographs, there are paintings, there are a lot of artists who are working with recycled materials. But in one way or another, most of the artists are looking at their response to climate change through their creative work. So that's the show that I'm opening next at the Turchin Center, and it will be in 2 galleries.
Sounds fantastic. Thank you.
Come and see it. It opens July 3rd.
July 3rd.
It will be open. And we usually open on Fridays, but the 4th is Friday, so we're not going to compete with the fireworks. But the show opens July 3rd, and it runs through the beginning of December. So it's up for a while.
Oh, it's up for a while. Okay.
We're bringing work, from Thailand. We want it to be on view for a while.
Okay. Maybe this fall.
Absolutely. We also have another exhibition center in Santa Fe, which is a photographic arts organization. I'm still on their advisory board, even though I'm not in Santa Fe anymore. But they do a call for entries every year, and they're looking at photographers who are working in social documentary fashion. And part of their award package is that there will be an exhibition. They have a lot of financial awards, but there will be an exhibition somewhere in the United States as part of the award package for their grant and award winners. So this is the 3rd time we've hosted that exhibition. So there are a lot of photographers from all over the country who are in that exhibition, and that is up until, I think, November 2nd. So again, really looking at a lot of different media in this case, a university art center, to talk about ideas that are important in the world today.
Well, we are at time for the evening, so I want to be mindful of everyone's time. Does anybody have any burning desires here before we finish up? No, well then, Mary Ann, thank you so much for your time and in suggesting that we have this theme, for curating the show for us, and for being here with us tonight. It's been a delight. And thank you so much.
And thank you for the opportunity. It was just so much fun to jury this show and be part of it. So thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you. So I hope everyone has, pardon?
I just said thank you so much. Great.
So I hope to see whoever is local and is able to make it out, for the opening for the next 2 shows. I hope to see you there. And if not, I hope to see you online for some of the juror and artist talks. And enjoy the rest of your evening.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, good night.
Thank you.